So I'm curious for you, like, how did your mission evolve? How did you come to realize the importance of that? What did that look like for you?
So in the early days, it was very easy to be focused. I was working a full-time job, started this thing called real estate, and I would buy a property. We would do a little remodel, and then we would rent it. This was long before we had the BRRRR method and any of that,
Right.
right? I mean, we were already doing that. And then I remember in 2012, we bought a house, and the market still stunk in 2012. We tried to sell it, and the thing is, nobody was buying, but it was on a lake, a small little lake. So we're like, well, what if we just rent it? Because there's this thing back in the day was called, today it's VRBO. Back then it was, I forget what it was called now. But anyway, whatever they were called before VRBO. And it was the idea of a vacation rental. Now, we hadn't heard of Airbnb. Short-term rental certainly did not exist, at least not
Right.
mainstream at that point. It's 2012. In fact, when we first heard of Airbnb, it's like, what's that, right? Like, I've never
Right.
heard of it. So we were doing short-term rentals before we knew about this idea of short-term rentals. We just called it something
Hmm.
different. But the thing is, the property would make a little money, which that was the goal, right? If I'm going to
Right.
hold the property, it needs to make a little money. If we're going to flip it, it needs to make a little money. That's all. Nothing crazy. We weren't thinking about being the next Elon Musk. We didn't even know who he was back then, right? And the problem came is, like so many people, we started seeing other opportunities. And opportunity is great, but it's also a very dangerous word. Because when you see opportunity, the question is, there's always opportunities. In fact, they're everywhere today. The problem is, does that opportunity line up with your mission? And it's
Right.
super easy to convince yourself it does when in fact it does not. And that's why I tell people you need a coach, because when you don't know that, if you're not leaning on people that have walked that path of the highs and lows before you, it is extraordinarily easy to get involved in an opportunity. Now you're knee deep in it, and it doesn't really line up with the core mission at the core of your soul. Super easy to do.
Right. Yes. And you're right. Like whenever you've got a coach, or I've worked, been a coach or worked with coaches, they're not caught up in the emotion of these new opportunities. They're a little bit removed. And so they can help you say, is that really in line with your core values and your mission on what you're trying to do? Or is that a distraction? Because we only have so many hours in the day and so much dollars in the bank. And so we have to be mindful of using those toward what we really want to get.
Exactly. I'll give you an example. It's happening literally right now. I got an opportunity in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The numbers look good. I've never been to Pittsburgh a day in my life, but the numbers are very strong. However, just as the numbers are strong, should I go into Pittsburgh? Like, I know what's involved with going into another market. You don't just waltz in and go, the world is perfect. It's easy. No, it comes littered with problems. It's a fairly good sized renovation. So I already know that this is the budget at 30%, maybe 40. That's probably where it's going to land. And the numbers still work. So now it becomes a temptation. And I'm literally, and this morning, I reached out to some contractors, and we'll do one walkthrough, and that's probably all it's going to take. And we're going to know super quick, is this something we really need to do? Or is this just something we needed? Let's just go find someone else in Pittsburgh to do this deal. Let's just go do that. Because you know what? That is
Right.
probably at the end of the day going to be much more in alignment. I'll take one look at it because the numbers were so strong. And if the numbers are super strong, okay, let's give it a little bit of effort. In the back of my mind is screaming now, is this in line with the mission? See, 10 years
Right.
ago, my brain wasn't thinking that way. This is how investors, by the way, get in serious trouble, is without even realizing it. You don't have that coach with the experience of extreme highs and lows to guide you. Next thing you know, you're in the middle of something deeper than you ever thought. And there was no harm in it. You just did it because it was an opportunity and it looked good, which is, quite frankly, why a lot of people get in real estate. And let's be real, there's a lot of people in real estate probably shouldn't be in real estate because it doesn't line up with what they're really after in life.